Chapter 2 has just dropped for Bioshock Gate, so let me break it down for you. So basically, what happened is that now the city of Columbia, yeah, no, this is gonna be some crazy stuff. And the best part is the reactions we got out of the people from Columbia. First one being, of course, Fink. Fink is basically put radio jammers except over the place where Slate is. If you don't remember Slate, it's this motherfucker here. Anyway, so basically Fink is making sure that no one can hear anything from down below, from the Sodom from below. And believe me when I say that, that's both a good thing and a bad thing, because, oh boy, things are about to get crazy, I'm not gonna lie. So, Fink, of course, wants to try and kind of show off Columbia in all its glory to the people from down below. And, like I said, things get kind of crazy for him. But that's all we care about. Even though, technically speaking, as soon as he makes contact with him, things go from the raffle. Because that's exactly what this is setting up for. It's the raffle. Yeah, I can already tell what's about to happen. Because as soon as the raffle happens, and that happens, let's just say that things are definitely going to go bad for them. Because as soon as a representative from the United States sees the raffle, they're going to not only take the stage and free those people, they're also going to say that this is illegal under federal law. And as such, basically the perpetrator who made this step forward so that they may face the full extent of the law. I already know how that's going to go, but we're going to get back to that in a second. The other reaction we got was from Daisy Fitzroy. Daisy Fitzroy herself believes that this is still technically 19 teens, meaning this is technically 50 years after the Civil War, meaning that she wants to show the federal government that they are not the graybacks of the Confederacy. They're more along the lines of course, the Blue Boys, the Yankees. And that's all good for her, but believe me when I say that they need to basically, I mean, I say this, but there is a split in the Vox Populi already, in that there are some who are probably going to want to stay independent, but then there are those who don't want the Federalist help. There are those who are Federalist and actually want the federal government to take back over Columbia. And then there are those who want to take over Columbia and, like I said, be independent. Already, that's going to lead to a lot of cool stuff down the line, and maybe a split and a possible insurgency that's going to happen that they have to deal with. Kind of like what we had with the Mujahideen during the 1980s, where, like the Soviet-Afghan War, basically, where we supplied the Mujahideen with weapons to help fight the Soviets, and those weapons got turned on us. So basically, this is well before that. And if this was during the Bush administration, they're going to basically remember that, but they haven't had that problem yet. So, yeah. The other one, of course, is Comstock. Comstock, of course, goes to the machine at the twins laboratory, the Lutece twins laboratory, and uses the machine as basically like an oracle, a prophecy. But instead of Columbia basically bringing fire and destruction to the Sodom below, it's Columbia that's on fire. And the twins even warn Comstock that the sins are basically going to come back on him. Already I want to get into that, but we got to get through this. The final thing is that not the final thing, close to the final thing, is that U-2 spy planes are basically sent up. And before anyone says anything, yes, technically speaking, the U-2s in the SR-71 Blackbird is still in service in the 1980s. I learned that little fact. Kind of a cool thing. I didn't know. And they're basically doing a grid where one plane's going this way, one plane's going that way. And they're basically doing a grid of the entire city, mapping it out and basically pointing out areas of interest. And even naming these areas of interest. And basically pointing out, hey, if we're basically going to get into a conflict, this is what we know about them. Or at least this is what we know about them so far. And possibly where we might want to set down troops. Not only that, but President Reagan gives a speech to the people, basically addressing the people, saying that they literally have a floating city above them, and they're going to treat it like a totally separate nation until they know more about it. That is actually Reagan at his best, and the fact that the author actually, and I actually talked to the author, Shadow_Trooper, aka Merc, and I actually talked with Merc. He actually went and watched Reagan's speeches to get the correct, basically how he would speak. And reading this in Reagan's voice, that is 100% Reagan, and I love it! Now, what about what will happen for Chapter 3? Chapter 3, they'll definitely set up a representative. As to whether that representative is, of color or of a female or male, I don't care, because as soon as that raffle happens, let me tell you right now, as soon as that raffle happens, this is where shit's going to go downhill pretty quickly, because The Vox Populi, by this point in time, will probably have people within the group. But as soon as the raffle happens and that scene happens, like I said, basically the U.S. government is going to put their foot down and basically tell them like it is. That's where basically the brainwashed people of Colombia are basically going to turn on them and try and make an example of them, especially Comstock, who's going to try and make an example of the federal representatives. Again, this is where shit's going to go down, because here's a little fun fact. Protection details, especially the diplomats that are sent around the United States, they have fucking Marine protection. Meaning that they got Marines there, full combat gear, with M16A2s. And as soon as the shooting starts, the Vox Populi, at that moment, if the author is going to go down that route, well, they'll have Vox Populi among the people, will definitely identify themselves as Federalists. They won't say, oh, they're Vox Populi, because again, remember, 1980s, Cold War still going on. The wall does not fall until the 90s. Again, Vox Populi will probably identify themselves as Federalist and basically get these people and try and evacuate them to one of their safe houses. And if I understand and know how this stuff works, one of those Marines will have a backpack radio on them. By backpack radio, I mean this big motherfucker. And they'll be able to basically contact saying that Condor 1 has been attacked, basically the representative will get in contact with them down below, and after learning everything they know about Colombia, they can basically tell them that this is a city in insurrection, basically a state insurrection that is illegally seceded. Yes, you technically can legally secede from the U.S. legally if there is a referendum. Technically speaking, Colombia never had a referendum. They never had a vote. They just illegally seceded. And as such, this is a state in rebellion, a state insurrection. Meaning that federal forces can legally go in there and basically put this insurrection down. And again, going forward from this, because technically speaking, they're basically in a hostile territory. And much like Benghazi, as much as me and everyone else has pointed out that was a failed operation, and that was failed, something we learned from it is that when this goes down, they will send in special forces. Who, you may ask? Not SEALs. As much as I do understand that Navy SEALs is everyone's go-to, no. Fuck the SEALs. Much respect to my SEAL brother and sisters, but I'm sorry. Navy SEALs, overrated, overdone. You send in fucking Delta, because the 1980s was the year of Delta forces. Delta had more operations and more missions during the 1980s than any other special forces branch, aside of course from the Rangers and the airborne units and airborne assault. Meaning that they're sending in Delta forces with their CAR-15s. And here's a nice little fun fact I learned from Forgotten Weapons, and something that I'm going to definitely I'm going to basically impart onto you. The CAR-15s they had were really kitted up with a lot of stuff that they bought from the civilian market. Meaning that they're going in with not only some of the Gucci and cool stuff that they had back then, but they're going with freaking IR flashlights and even some cool wicked laser units. If you want to learn more, go watch Forgotten Weapons video on the equipment and stuff that Delta actually had back then. Even go watch freaking Larry Vicker talk about some of the stuff that he had when he was Delta. There's a lot of cool stuff that I can just go into, but I'm not going to go into the guns and gear. What I'm going to say is that Delta is basically going to go in there, and much like, of course, Delta's operation, which I believe was Operation Eagle, I think it was, where they are going in to basically save a hostage. Except in this case, they're basically going in to try and extract them. Now, the first extraction, I'm going to say, now, the way the author could go about this is that they could attempt to evacuate not only, of course, the VIP, but also with their protection detail, and even Daisy Fitzroy herself, because, again, Daisy Fitzroy is basically going to be there talking with the representative, trying to plead to her that they are not like, of course, the Confederates. They are more like the Yankees. But the big bombshell I think we're all looking forward to is the reaction of them finding out it is not the 19-teens. It is 1984. It is well beyond 50 years from the Civil War. It is now years after the Civil War, many years after the Civil War, and they're basically being told literally what the U.S. is now. They have equal rights. Women have equal rights, right to vote. It doesn't matter who you are, black, white, yellow, Jew, Gentile, you have civil rights and civil liberties that are protected by the federal government. She can basically fill them in on what they've missed, and finding out exactly what this city is and kind of where they're coming from, what year they think it is. This is where basically we get some H.G. Wells level shit here, and we literally seeing this stuff. And again, when the extraction happens, the author could basically say, oh, the first extraction failed, meaning that they'll have to do like Bioshock Infinite, the mission where you basically go to get an airship and you fly off. In this case, they're basically going to fly an airship down below to a designated airport where they basically have Gordon that sucker off, and the military is waiting for them. Again, there are so many things that can be done with this. Like, again, if the author goes this route, basically come in, they're surrounded by gunboats. And by gunboats, I mean the literal flying boats that have, like, missile launchers and machine guns on them, basically. And they get blown the fuck up by fucking F-15s or fucking F-16s or basically F-4 Phantoms. Basically, whatever attack craft they have in the air at that time, and then are escorted down below in their weird dirigible, their airship. And from there, again, there is so much that can be done, because as soon as it is revealed that this is a city insurrection, and this is a city from the 19-teens, and this is a actual state insurrection, yes, many people are probably going to sound for the comments. I include, because I'm from Tennessee, where basically, oh, that's going to stoke some flames politically about some movements that kind of were still around in the 1980s. But in this case, because it's Reaganomics and Reaganism, he could basically spin this in a way that, again, can basically fuel that American patriotism. He can reinforce that these people are basically not what America is. America under Reaganism is 100% America. The few, the proud, the land of the free, home of the brave. And literally stoke that fire up to where not only are they getting more volunteers to basically enlist, but also to basically go bring the city back under U.S. law, federal government rule. And from there, I could go into great detail, but I'd rather you guys in the comments section, yes, please, in the comments section, sound off. What do you think? What do you think's going to happen? Are we going to get like a early version of Baghdad? We're basically going to get some urban fighting? What are we going to get? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. And the big thing is that this city is technically going towards a capital city. Kansas City, to be exact. So again, it's one of those things of, there is so much this guy can do, and I am so looking forward to where this goes. But again, we have to wait until Chapter 3 comes out so I can talk a little bit more about it, talk more about the strategies that will be implemented, and sort of the gear and equipment that they could be implemented as well. But to you, my fellow military nerds and fellow lovers of just the 80s, sound off in the comments section. As always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Airsoft Al, the comments Airsoft who reviews these awesome fanfics. They're actually really good stories, so you guys can kind of figure it out for yourself, and whether or not you like it, and enjoy what this awesome story is. This underrated, well, not underrated story. This new story, this only story of the Gate fandom, where it is Bioshock. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to help out the channel, consider donating to the PayPal or Cash App. Links down below. And if you want to read this one yourself, pin comment down below as well, along with those donation links. Because believe me when I say, it's folks like you that actually make what we do here possible. In fact, Merc is the reason why I'm able to actually have a setup for a night game that I'm going to be going. So if you want to help out with future stuff like this right here, then consider donating to the PayPal and Cash App down below. One of our goals is actually acquiring a Fallout neon sign to replace the SRU blueprint here, so that we actually have the build up a Fallout background for the video backdrop. And again, as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Airsoft Al, and I shall see all you lovely, lovely people in the next video. Till next time, later.